Good evening, everyone. This is Shahood. Today I'm going to discuss operating system of tech startup. It's not a technical discussion, it's more like management of tech startup, because tech startup has different phases, and every phase you need to basically change your management style. So based on my experience, I'm going to discuss different kind of management styles throughout this talk. Let me introduce myself. I started my career as software developer, backend, and then mobile developer at Cygnus Media. It's a software development agency in Pakistan. And then I moved to Saudi Arabia, where I joined Raktan Group. It's a parent company which has 5 startups, starting with Equip.com, Kawa Shop, Spheri, Miran is D2C, and Raktan is like solution provider for kitchen equipment directly. The biggest startup here was Equip. The annual turnaround was 300 million per year when I left this company. And then last year I joined One Tech Capital, which has 2 startups, Coffee App and All-Up. Coffee App is the biggest startup under One Tech, and it has around 3 million users at this moment. So today I'm going to basically discuss more about real life scenarios and cases which we face throughout our journey, especially in Coffee App. Leadership mindset. So the most important thing when you join a startup, you will face different leaders coming around, like from different startups. They have their own mindset. For example, in Coffee, when I joined last year, our CFO was from Talabat. Our marketing director was from Carriage. So I joined from Raktan, a totally different mindset, right, from Saudi Arabia. So when you join and you try to work together, you will feel that everyone has their own process and they don't work together. They cannot work together unless they find an agreement in a process. So the most important thing which I tried and struggled and fought to start with, to agree on a process. With the process, the most important thing you should know that the mindset should be focusing more on outcome versus output. So like you want to achieve, for example, -6 EBITDA, but you don't know what to do. So you will list down 700 or 800 tasks for different departments to do ABC to get this outcome. But it is impossible unless you have the right process to achieve this outcome. Usually, based on my experience, when you start a new startup, like the first year, your team, including the management team and leadership team, is very small. It usually has CEO, business manager, maybe 2 business managers, marketing, 1 guy, 1 finance guy, and a small product trio. Product trio is, I think, the engine of tech startup. It consists of product manager, design lead, and tech lead. Tech lead could be a only developer of this tech startup, or can be managing a small team of like 2 or 3 developers, either remotely or working in-house. Or maybe in some cases, this team could be outsourced to an agency. After working like 3 years continuously, right now our team consists of like Coffee App. In Coffee App, we have 40 software engineers, 4 designers, 6 product managers, and data engineers. So the trio of starting from 3 people in the product trio, now we are almost 50 people in this particular startup. How do we manage? We work as tribes. Coffee is a super app of coffee. So we sell drinks, we are e-commerce, we have different segments in our application. So the way we have divided our squads and our developers and engineers into tribes. So the most important business segments in our applications are on-demand and e-commerce. So these two segments consist the biggest engineering team. So I'm going to discuss only these two segments right now. We have integration squad and other segments as well, but these are the biggest team. So we call tribe for the on-demand, and every squad is related to a particular segment. So we have squad for customer application, vendor portal, MPOS as a separate squad, and all of them are working on with microservice architecture, so they can work independently and isolatedly. They are not depending on each other at all. Again, we have team leads, we have organizational structure as well. So we create the chapters. Chapters are like, for example, we have a chapter for QA. So in one of the squad, the team lead of QA is already there, but at the same time, he is the chapter lead who is making sure that all the QA engineers are following the best practices and they are sharing their concerns. I adopt this whole model from Spotify. I want to share the Spotify video with you guys, and they are sharing their concerns with them. I adopt this whole model from Spotify. I want to share the Spotify video with you guys.
One of the big success factors here at Spotify is our agile engineering culture. Culture tends to be invisible. We don't notice it because it's there all the time, kind of like the air we breathe. But if everyone understands the culture, we're more likely to be able to keep it and even strengthen it as we grow. So that's the purpose of this video. When our first music player was launched in 2008, we were pretty much a Scrum company. Scrum is a well-established agile development approach, and it gave us a nice team-based culture. However, a few years later, we had grown into a bunch of teams and found that some of the standard Scrum practices were actually getting in the way. So we decided to make all this optional. Rules are a good start, but then break them when needed. We decided that Agile matters more than Scrum, and Agile principles matter more than any specific practices. So we renamed the Scrum Master role to Agile Coach because we wanted servant leaders more than process masters. We also started using the term squad instead of Scrum team, and our key driving force became autonomy. So what is an autonomous squad? A squad is a small, cross-functional, self-organizing team, usually less than 8 people. They sit together and they have end-to-end responsibility for the stuff they build. Design, commit, deploy, maintenance, operations, the whole thing. Each squad has a long-term mission, such as make Spotify the best place to discover music, or internal stuff like infrastructure for A/B testing. Autonomy basically means that the squad decides what to build, how to build it, and how to work together while doing it. There are, of course, some boundaries to this, such as the squad mission, the overall product strategy for whatever area they are working on, and short-term goals that are renegotiated every quarter. Our office is optimized for collaboration. Here's a typical squad area. The squad members work closely together here with adjustable desks and easy access to each other's screens. They gather over here in the lounge for things like planning sessions and retrospectives. And back there is a huddle room for smaller meetings or just to get some quiet time. Almost all walls are whiteboards. So why is autonomy so important? Well, because it's motivating, and motivated people build better stuff. Also, autonomy makes us fast by letting decisions happen locally in the squad instead of via a bunch of managers and committees and stuff. It helps us minimize handoffs and waiting so we can scale without getting bogged down with dependencies and coordination. Although each squad has its own mission, they need to be aligned with product strategy, company priorities, and other squads. Basically, be a good citizen in the Spotify ecosystem. Spotify's overall mission is more important than any individual squad. So the key principle is really be autonomous, but don't sub-optimize. It's kind of like a jazz band. Although each musician is autonomous and plays his own instrument, they listen to each other and focus on the whole song together. That's how great music is created. So our goal is loosely coupled, but tightly aligned squads. We're not all there yet, but we experiment a lot with different ways of getting closer. In fact, that applies to most things in this video. This culture description is really a mix of what we are today and what we are trying to become in the future. Alignment and autonomy may seem like different ends of a scale, as in more autonomy equals less alignment. However, we think of it more like two different dimensions. Down here is low alignment and low autonomy, a micromanagement culture. No high-level purpose, just shut up and follow orders. Up here is high alignment, but still low autonomy. So leaders are good at communicating what problem needs to be solved, but they're also telling people how to solve it. High alignment and high autonomy means leaders focus on what problem to solve, but let the teams figure out how to solve it. What about down here then? Low alignment and high autonomy means teams do whatever they want and basically all run in different directions. Leaders are helpless and our product becomes a Frankenstein. We're trying hard to be up here. Aligned autonomy. And we keep experimenting with different ways of doing that. So alignment enables autonomy. The stronger alignment we have, the more autonomy we can afford to grant. That means the leader's job is to communicate what problem needs to be solved and why, and the squads collaborate with each other to find the best solution. One consequence of autonomy is that we have very little standardization. When people ask things like, which code editor do you use, or how do you plan? The answer is mostly, depends on which squad. Some do Scrum sprints, others do Kanban. Some estimate stories and measure velocity, others don't. It's really up to each squad. Instead of formal standards, we have a strong culture of cross-pollination. When enough squads use a specific practice or tool, such as Git, that becomes the path of least resistance, and other squads tend to pick the same tool. Squads start supporting that tool and helping each other, and it becomes like a de facto standard. This informal approach gives us a healthy balance between consistency and flexibility. Our architecture is based on over 100 separate systems coded and deployed independently. There's plenty of interaction, but each system focuses on one specific need, such as playlist management, search, or monitoring. We try to keep them small and decoupled with clear interfaces and protocols. Technically, each system is owned by one squad. In fact, most squads own several. But we have an internal open source model, and our culture is more about sharing than owning.
Spotify model looks very simple, but when you start implementing in your team and you try to convince your team, it actually takes like 2 or 3 years to actually implement the whole thing based on what you just saw in this video. But after having the structure and having different Scrum teams, it's not only the process, you can manage the whole requirements and the output. So you need a large scale Scrum process where you can basically manage more than 8 squads at the same time. So this is how basically COFE team structure works. We have almost 6 product owners who are taking care of every squad. Each and every squad are isolated from each other, but at the same time, if any feature comes which requires more than like 3 and 4 squads, so they work together, but at the same time in their own sprints. I will give you one real-time example. But before that, I want to start with like, once you have your settled engineering team, what is the most important thing for the tech startup to achieve their outcome? So when I joined COFE app last year, the biggest problem was people are not repeating their orders. So we have 3 million customers, but people are not doing orders more than like 3 and 4 in a month. And this was the problem which we want to solve, but technology is not the solution for this. So you need to have a framework to solve this problem. I try to implement OKRs and try to emphasize to define the objective, what exactly we want to achieve in every quarter. At the same time, how OKR and LeSS are going to work together, this is what we are going to discuss now. So this was the problem. We were receiving the orders, but at the same time, you can see the acquisitions were not increasing. And the churn rate was increasing after every quarter. So to address this problem and to solve this problem, we defined this objective. The objective was to increase the daily repeat orders by 80% within the next 3 months. Not only the tech solution can help us to achieve this objective. So first key result of this objective was get 100% tier A brands like Dunkin', Caribou. These are the brands which are available on our application. So get 100% tier A brands under our reward program. We have a reward program that allows customers to get points, and then this will keep them motivated to keep using our application. But we didn't have all the tier A brands under reward program. So this was one of the main key results, which we thought that this will help us to achieve the objective. And the second key result, which was directly aligned with product trio, was to introduce 2 new business segments that could help us to retain those customers. So once we define the business level of OKR, on the product trio, product and engineering department, they have their own OKR, which is directly linked and connected with business OKR. And the product trio was supposed to build subscription model within this quarter. And it's not only building the subscription, the objective was to get the first subscription on the application within this 3 months. And then the initiatives and the key results were defined in the same under the same objective. Of course, we heard about discovery phase, so we had the whole discovery phase during this first 3 weeks and 2 weeks. We discussed with business. Our design team and product team actually met some customers and did the research how other subscriptions are working. And then we defined the whole scope, what engineer needs to build. Here you can see that after finishing the whole discovery phase, we started our sprints. So we had these 4 squads that were supposed to work to achieve this objective. Core, the backend developers, has to start the API development. So week 1 and week 2, these squads started. And then from the second sprint, mobile team and admin panel team started contributing. So we defined the scope that we are going to achieve in 6 weeks, the whole subscription model on our application. And then we were supposed to meet business during the OKR check-in meeting and show the whole demo of the development. We built, we achieved because we had the process of Scrum, so we were making sure that it is working and engineers are intact and they have their goal to achieve. But when we met business in this OKR check-in meeting, it happens like during the mid of quarter. Business at the same time were working on ground, discussing with brands about the subscription. So initially we were supposed to have coffee cups, like one single subscription for all the brands. And this is what our engineering team and product team were developing. After 6 weeks, when we met business and showed the demo, they were happy that, okay, subscription is there, but they gave us the bad news that no brand are going to join us. And the reason is they don't want to have one subscription, they want to have their own subscription on our platform. And this was huge. This was, again, miscommunication. There were so many factors you can call it, but this actually happened. And this is normal in tech startup because you cannot contact everyone who are working on ground, because every different departments are working isolated. So of course we have to go back, we have to redefine the changes, we have to rework. Almost 50% things needs to rework and develop, and ultimately we made it happen. We made it live, the whole subscription. And since the business took this call that we are going to convince the brands if you do those changes. So they actually brought all the big brands in our application during this month. I'm talking about the second half of that quarter. So we actually launched the subscription with all the tier A brands, and we didn't achieve like one order, we actually achieved like 50 subscription we got in that quarter. But ultimately the business level objective didn't meet 100%, because what we wanted to have as an outcome was 80% daily repeat orders, but we actually met 40% growth after this. And this was not the only output we did, like subscription. We actually did a lot of marketing stuff, and we introduced a repeat order campaign as well. But you can see that even your key results are 100% met, at least one of them. The outcome, which is objective of the business, can be 50%. So it's not like all the outputs are 100, but still you, which will directly impact on your objective. Here I'm trying to explain basically how OKRs and Scrum works together. So if you have company level objective, then product and tech level objective, this can be divided into sprint objectives. And once you have sprint objectives, each and every squad can work together to achieve that particular objective, which should ultimately, if you have the right planning, should impact directly on the business outcome. That's it. Yeah.